Hi. Today I want to talk about why the identity panics during this process. So, there's a particular kind of discomfort that doesn't feel like sadness and doesn't feel like anxiety, well, not in the usual sense. But it's something closer to instability, a subtle sense that the way you normally understand yourself isn't holding together with the same ease. Nothing has necessarily gone wrong. Your circumstances may even be unchanged. From the outside, everything still looks coherent. But internally, the narrative you rely on to explain who you are feels slightly less convincing. As if the structure's still there, but certainty behind it's thin. Most people interpret this as confusion or loss of confidence. They assume they need to think more clearly, reflect more carefully, or reaffirm their sense of direction to restore the feeling of coherence. But the discomfort isn't coming from lack of understanding. It appears at the moment when the identity is no longer fully aligned with the available power. Identity depends on continuity. It assumes that the way you've been able to act, decide, and function will continue to be available. When your capacity narrows, even subtly, that assumption is quietly challenged. The roles remain, the expectations remain, but the internal ease that once supported them isn't automatic anymore. The mind senses the discrepancy and tries to stabilise it by reinforcing the narrative, thinking more, analysing more, and trying to reaffirm the sense of self that previously felt unquestioned. But identity isn't restored by thinking harder, because the instability isn't cognitive, it's structural. Spinoza wrote that the mind strives to imagine what increases its power of acting and resists what diminishes it. Identity is part of that striving. It's a model of continuity, a way of interpreting experience so it feels coherent. When power decreases, perception narrows, and the mind resists the implication that its range has changed. That resistance is experienced as tension. In modern neuroscience, they offer a similar perspective, one that the sense of self isn't fixed, that it's an ongoing model that the brain constructs based on predictions about what it can do. When those predictions stop matching the actual capacity, the brain experiences prediction error and tries to reduce it by adjusting the interpretation. That adjustment often feels destabilising because the model of who you are is quietly updating. This is why identity panic can appear without an obvious external cause. The brain is detecting a mismatch between expected capacity and actual capacity, and the mind responds by trying to restore stability through analysis, reassurance, or increased effort. But the discomfort persists because the change isn't conceptual. The model's catching up to a shift that's already happened. I've seen this most clearly in people who are deeply identified with competence. They reach a point where nothing external suggests failure, yet the internal sense of ease changes. Tasks require more deliberate attention. Decisions feel heavier. The instinct is to reaffirm the identity that's always felt reliable, to explain why nothing has changed, to maintain the narrative of continuity. But the tension remains because the system is adjusting while the story is trying to stay fixed.